Member of the January 6th Select Committee, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. It's always good to have you. Let's talk about enforcing subpoenas and what the committee is doing at the moment. There are a number of current lawmakers that you're looking at, and the committee has said that it will use all of the tools at its disposal to get those lawmakers to cooperate. What exactly are those tools?
Well, I mean, the first thing we want to do, we have to do, is to ask them to voluntarily come in and cooperate. The expectation, of course, is that they will resist, that they're trying to buy time. And then we are exploring options we have after that. There's certain speech and debate clause issues we deal with and the role of Congress and subpoenaed members of Congress. But my expectation is that the force of law still applies. And so if we get to the point where they're certainly not agreeing to come in voluntarily, we'll explore those options. And I think it's been obvious from the committee's work that we won't hesitate to do that.
So you're not going to rule out subpoenas. You're not going to rule out holding them in contempt of Congress. These are sitting lawmakers. What about getting them off of their committees?
Well, I mean, look, I think it's a possibility. I think pulling people off of committees on a whole House vote needs to be reserved for special cases like I voted for with Marjorie Taylor Greene, for instance. We can't have that kind of be the knee-jerk reaction to everything. Discipline should be handled obviously within the party, but the Republican Party, the Republican caucus, is not doing that. But I'll say this, whether you agree with the committee's investigation or not, whether you agree with what we're doing, we are represented by a legitimate vote of the House of Representatives to be the people's voice to get information. The American people deserve this information. The history books written in the future deserve this information, and we're going to make sure we move heaven and earth to get it. This is not a partisan issue. This is a nonpartisan investigation. The only thing partisan is whether you believe in democracy or you don't. And those who believe in democracy should beg for the results of this committee to be accurate, truthful, and fulsome.
Given that, the committee sent a letter to Sean Hannity saying that we know you love your country, we know you believe in democracy, we're hoping you're going to voluntarily comply with our questioning. The text messages from Hannity to the chief of staff warning Donald Trump not to go through with January 6th. You've released those. Why are those messages significant to the committee?
It's significant for a couple of reasons. First off, the communication behind the scenes, both during and prior to January 6th. Keep in mind, we know that Donald Trump, quote unquote, this decisive president who's anything but, was sitting watching television for about 180 minutes while this was going on. The question, and I think the thing that will get to culpability, which I don't have an answer to yet, the committee will get to, is what did he know prior to this occurring? Was he simply a spectator in something that shocked him and indecisive? Obviously, his oath requires him to defend the Constitution, to defend things like the Capitol, and he didn't. Is that criminal? And I think a lot of that will get to what did he know prior. So a text message to a chief of staff that says, hey, call off January 6th seems to imply that maybe there was an understanding that something big was going to happen. I personally said on January 1st that there was going to be violence on the 6th. I don't know if I, envisioned the occupation of the Capitol, but that's going to be important. What did they know prior?
What is your expectation on what the committee is going to find against the President of the United States? Where are you going with this questioning? You're talking about Hannity sending a text message warning him not to go through with January 6th and the implications of that. I mean, what's your expectation for when you find the results of this, where the president is going to stand, the former president?
Well, I'm trying not to go into this with expectations. I want to let the facts direct the answers. That's what the committee is doing. I know I have a gut feeling because, I lived that life prior. I lived the whole area, as we all did, between the election and January 6th, where you continued to hear some conspiracy theorists that have since become mainline talking about our ability to just simply overthrow the will of the people, how January 6th can be this magic day we reinstate Donald Trump as president. But we want to have the facts dictate that, because this report and anything that comes from this committee isn't necessarily about convincing those that don't believe or reaffirming those that do. It's about laying a bare groundwork for what needs to be done, what we understand to ensure this never happens again, because anytime you have violence or really any norm violated in politics, that doesn't become a special occasion in the future. That becomes the baseline activity. So what's going to happen in 2024 and onward? That's what we need to get to.
Let's talk about the other White House aides that you might be talking to. Trump's former press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, is going to meet with the committee. NBC News has just confirmed that she's meeting with the committee tonight. How many White House aides have you spoken to so far without a subpoena?
Plenty. I can't give the exact number. I don't know if I know the exact number. We've, as you've heard, interviewed over 300 witnesses. I think this is the key to understanding is what we see is a little tip of the iceberg. We see some of the activities above board, you know, the Meadows stuff, the Bannon stuff. But underneath, the staff of the committee, the members of the committee, are extremely active in gathering information. So let's say we never talked to President Trump or we never talked to, you know, any high-profile individual. We're going to have people all that have a piece of that story, a slice of different moments in time that we can put together into the bigger picture. And as we know how investigations go, you know, you put those pieces together and then you move up the ladder. That's what we're doing. And I think you're going to have continued cooperation by a significant number of people. There are people that have gone quiet that also see the tragedy of January 6th and have no current re-election political interest in trying to push a false narrative like so many of my colleagues do.
Do you expect to change anybody's mind in Congress? I know you're not talking about the broader public, but any other Republicans' mind about what's coming down the pike for 2024? There's a lot of reporting out there. I know you're finding out a lot of information in your committee that is not so reassuring for our democracy, especially as we go to the polls in November 2024.
It's really frightening. Look, a year ago, I was much more optimistic about the impending, you know, recognition of democracy being at threat. I'm a little more pessimistic. I think we will, certainly, and that's what I'm trying to do through my movement, countryfirst.com, country1st.com. But what we're trying to do is to bring all that together. But I got to tell you, you know, is it going to change anybody's mind? Probably not, because honestly, most members of the Republican Congress understand what happened on January 6th. They're just not courageous enough to go out and tell the truth. And so you put people like, it's easy to demonize and isolate. Liz Cheney and I were willing to play that, to do that because it's the right thing. But I'll tell you, if you put everybody on truth serum, they'd agree with us. The problem is the base voters are not having anybody tell them the truth. And they're the ones that are going to be misled and abused as they have been for so long.
Public hearings could happen later in the spring and in the summer. Who are you going to call? Who is the public going to hear from? What kind of witness, if you can't tell me any specific names?
Yeah, I can't tell you specific names, but it's this. It's painting the picture and putting the story together from those involved at various levels, those that are experts in some of these issues, like when we talk about domestic radicalization. I expect that we'll have some discussion on potential changes. We need to be discussing about the Electoral Count Act and changes that can be made to that, because we've seen so many areas where there were linchpins on January 6th that weren't necessary. But our goal here is to get the information and then put this out through these hearings in front of the American people, free of spin, free of conspiracy, which we've heard so much of, and tell the truth, tell the story. Because I got to tell you, self-governance isn't easy. You know, I think we were kind of raised believing it was easy because it was so ingrained. But you recognize you have to have a base level of trust, even between people that have nothing in common, in order to do it. Look, I've made friends on the other side of the aisle that I don't agree with on things in politics, but we agree on the defense of democracy. That's the most important thing right now.
I know you want to talk to Vice President Pence. There is a consideration to asking him to come speak with the committee. What about the Secret Service agents that might have been with him on that day, or frankly, the Secret Service agents that might have been with the president on January 6th?
Oh, yeah, I think that would be important. I think there's questions about, you know, the Secret Service having obviously a duty to confidentiality in order to be able to protect a president. But I think anybody that has information we should hear from if we can, recognizing, of course, that there are some of those limitations. But again, I don't think even all of that is necessary, because the pieces of information that are coming together, it's like a puzzle. You could look down and see a bunch of pieces, but when you begin to put it together, It paints a real picture from start to finish. Not just January 6th. I think actual January 6th is a symptom of a deeper problem. The rot prior to January 6th and then the conspiracies that have justified it since January 6th. That, to me, is the bigger concern than even that awful day.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger of the January 6th Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us again. It is always good to talk to you.
You bet. Take care.